Welcome back to Simply Bitcoin. It's the weekend recap. We break down the news from Twitter, the daily fail, meme review, software releases, hardware releases, websites by plebes or plebs. Joining us today is a fellow Bitcoiner, pleb, and memer. I'm talking about Top Roller. Anyways, we're going to the numbers.
Number time! Sponsored by Bitcoin 2022. That reminds me, we got a request from a subscriber.
No.
Yes.
No.
So Fusion said, Phil, you could do the Clark Moody numbers as a Gregorian chant.
Yes, no, that's not a request. That was he was just implying that I could.
Yeah, but that is a request.
That's not the way a request is framed.
You could do the Clark Moody numbers as a Gregorian chant.
I could.
So
in theory.
You could pull up a YouTube video with copyright-free Gregorian chant, and you could do the numbers as a Gregorian chant.
That's not how this works, Nico. It's not how this works.
The people have spoken.
They do. They speak a lot. They do speak a lot. I know. I'm a person. I speak a lot. Nobody listens.
Fine.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. One day. Okay, maybe. 3, 2, 1. At the time of this recording, the block height is 705,460. The Bitcoin price, 61,040. Chain rewrite days, 852. Total public lightning capacity, that looks like another all-time high, 3,093.4. Sats per dollar or Moscow time, 1640. And the blocks to the halvening, 134,540. 540. I can't do Gregorian chants. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for anyone who's new to the channel and is wondering why Phil just sung that and there's music in the background, we got a comment from a fan, which I'm going to pop up, that said, Phil, you could do the Clark Moody numbers as a Gregorian chant. So, hey, there you go. The plebes ass, we deliver. Isn't that what's up? But Phil,
we tried.
Numbers looking good.
The numbers are definitely, and actually, you know what? Right now, as we're recording, not that it matters, Bitcoin just happens to be pumping out of its slump, which again really doesn't make a difference. But yeah, we just broke like 61.2 or something like that. So again, public Lightning node capacity sitting at an all-time high. We're almost at 3,100, and the Bitcoin price, holding steady where we're at. So something's growing.
61.2.
This thing won't die. You know what I mean? I actually have this picture up at my desk at work, and it shows like these two secret agents with like a person being pounded in the ground and the person, it has the Bitcoin logo, and it has the two agents saying, Mr. Bitcoin, why won't you die?
You're gonna have to send me a picture of it. Sorry.
I know, I gotta find it. Next time I go to the office, I'll take a picture of it.
Boom. Anyways,
I'll see if I can find it for this episode.
Another day of consolidating. You guys know what's up. We do not like to speculate on this channel. We like to focus on the signal. And the signal there is the lightning capacity. It keeps doing its thing, keeps growing, right? So anyways, the honey badger doesn't care. After the China ban, two China bans, after the Elon FUD, after the crash of the hash rate, and the constant attacks from mainstream media and all the fiat economists. And honey badger doesn't care. Anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Fail, sponsored by Pirate Hash. All right, so last week we were showing you guys the angel backers, right, of OpenSea and their NFT marketplace. So we're working on a little bit of a different fail for that. And even though this doesn't have anything to do with NFTs, just remember, right, when we're looking at the landscape, we need to remember, why am I being told this information? Why am I being sold this product or this idea? Because there are a lot of people with a lot of money at stake, and we're going to take a look at one of them today. Let's dive into Pantera Capital a little bit. So here we go. Bitcoin will significantly underperform altcoin market as new shitcoin price era unfolds. Pantera Capital's Dan Moorhead. Very interesting. All right. My perspective is Bitcoin has been amazing. Pantera Bitcoin Fund is up 67,000% since inception. However, I think the majority of future gains will be from tokens outside of Bitcoin. I know that sounds heretical to some people here, but that's my professional opinion. It's like saying and this is, again, this is where you can totally see, right? You know, so look, these people, they look at everything in terms of totally fiat gains, right? This is the system that we're living in. This is the complete fiat mindset. They're not trying to shift a paradigm. They're not trying to create, a better, more level playing field for everyone. They're just simply lining their pockets, okay? And when we talk about making a level playing field, for everyone, we're talking about everybody being able to store their value the same way on the proper base layer of money. Anyways, look at this ridiculous comparison. At the time, Microsoft was worth, it's like saying in 1998 that the majority of future tech gains would come from outside Microsoft. At the time, Microsoft was worth $218 billion, Apple $3.5 billion, Amazon was $2.2 billion. Google and Facebook were zero. They didn't even exist. In the year since Microsoft did great, it went up 10x. However, 80% of the tech gains in these 5 stocks came from outside Microsoft. The fact that you're comparing this crap to Microsoft, it's just ridiculous, right? Like, this is all just garbage. He's comparing stocks to Bitcoin. I mean, right there, it's just an automatic fail. Now, as I was reading this, I'm like, you know what? Let's go take a look at Pantera, because you see, there's something very telling about what he said here. We're going to go back to it. It's this line right here. I think the majority of future gains will be from tokens outside of Bitcoin. How is he so certain? Let's go take a look. Let's go take a look at what Pantera holds in their portfolio. We invest in thematic ideas and projects that are core infrastructure pieces of the blockchain ecosystem, such as exchanges, custodians, institutional trading tools, decentralized finance, next-gen payment systems, and more. Since 2013, we have backed more than 80 blockchain companies and 65 early-stage token deals. You notice they're not backing Bitcoin, right? Because they can't actually bring any value to Bitcoin. They're backing shitcoins. Let's dive into it. Okay? Let's just start scrolling down. There's a few that we're going to stop on. But we can start right here. OX, right? Start with this one right here. Open protocol that enables peer-to-peer trading of assets. We've got Abra, right? Which lets you trade and hold shitcoins. Let's keep going. We've got Anchor. It's a DeFi token. It's another shitcoin. Like, just take a look at this list. Another one. Lottery token? I'm pretty sure everybody's using their local currency to buy lottery tickets at this point. I don't think they need something like this. BitGo, Blockfolio, Bitstamp, Bloom, Token, Brain Trust. I know for a fact that's a shitcoin. I remember people shilling it. Brave, right? Brave has its own shitcoin. Why does a browser need a shitcoin? Anyways, we're going to stop at Civic, okay? Because Civic is a very interesting type of shitcoin for me, because I actually work with Civic. I actually use their API, and I can tell you for a fact that their token is not required in any shape or form, okay, to actually perform its function. It's not required. A company that uses Civic doesn't have to purchase any Civic token, okay? The Civic token is not used when transferring your identity, when validating your identity. And the best part of it is, right, this is blockchain technology, decentralized ID, right? Well, guess what? When you validate your identity, whose server do you think you're validating your identity against? Civic's server. A centralized server owned by Civic's Corporation. Doesn't need to exist. And this is the type of garbage that they're investing in. So yes, they absolutely think that the gains are going to come from outside of Bitcoin, because they are going to create the false narrative and the stories to sell you a bunch of shitcoin bags that don't need to exist. Did you? I actually wasn't aware. I knew that Pantera invested in this space heavily, but I didn't realize how many shitcoin projects they were involved in. I mean, it almost seems like they run the market. I mean, a good portion of it. I mean, look, there's 8,000 shitcoins out there. They've backed 80 projects, but again, right? They fund the exchanges, right? We saw they fund Coinbase. Anyways, look, you know, the link is going to be there for everybody to go through and really do a deep dive on every piece of crap that they, you know, that they essentially own a piece of. But it's really scary when you see how much of this market they actually own.
Dude, does it surprise me? No. And it actually kind of pisses me off because it's the same story as Brian Armstrong, right? Bitcoin is what made and gave them wealth. Pantera Capital is the same, right? They got into Bitcoin early, right? And it was Bitcoin that essentially gave them all that wealth to essentially, you know, start investing in shitcoins, right? Because Bitcoin has entered, you know, the law of big numbers now, right? And essentially, you know, again, it's much harder to, you know, go from, you know, a trillion, or it's much harder to go from $1,000 US to $10,000 US than it was for Bitcoin to get from 0 to 100. So their logic is like, okay, you know, let's start investing in these shit coins that have small market caps, you know, that could potentially 100x, because it's a lot easier, you know, to get from $1 million market cap to $100 million market cap than it is for Bitcoin to get from $1 trillion market cap to $10 trillion market cap. But again, this is all noise, you know, and these corporations don't have the best interest of Bitcoin in mind, right? Because what is the ultimate goal of Bitcoin? What is the ultimate goal of this channel, right? The ultimate goal of Bitcoin, the ultimate goal of this channel is to destroy the central bankers that have enslaved humanity, right? That literally, you know, the way the fiat system works, it literally redistributes the wealth every time they print, every time the Federal Reserve print or any central bank. What happens is the people at the bottom end of the economic scale, or the middle end of the economic scale, that don't have the wealth to invest into real estate or equities, right? They just hold cash. Their savings are in cash. They get poorer, right? And that wealth gets redistributed back to the state and to the top 1%, right? So again, you kind of have, you know, it's a shame, you know, that you have a company with such means, right, not, you know, trying to go for Bitcoin's mission, but really acting kind of in this fiat culture of, you know, I'm going to come up with, you know, these fake shit that no one really fucking needs, but I'm going to convince them that they need it, you know, to enrich themselves, right? It's a shame, you know. It sucks, but anyways, I'm going to ask our guest, the infamous Top Roller, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's just more fiat S coining. All they do is print money, and they buy with that printed money whatever supposed project they think is going to just sell for more fiat later, and it results in a lot of dishonesty. Even though they may not consider some of it illegal, but it is completely dishonest, and we're like, I guess you could equate it to like the people who are like in Bitcoin and stuff who've never seen how like Wall Street really works. Like, well, this is exactly how Wall Street worked the entire time. You know, this is, you know, we're looking straight at like this is the new version of the pink sheet bulletin board stock market. Total scams.
Yeah, 100%, man. I totally agree. And look, guys, again, you know, this is all noise. You know, all those projects is noise. The signal here is Bitcoin. Why? Because it's the only blockchain cryptocurrency. I hate using those words. Blockchain, you should start calling it time chain, because that's what Satoshi actually called it. All those projects, right, they don't have sufficient amount of decentralization to essentially break out of this boom and bust cycle that humanity has been experiencing for hundreds of years now, right? We need to take the monetary policy out of the hands of humans. Therefore, it can't be corrupted, rules without rulers, and only Bitcoin could do that. All these other projects, they have a central entity that's dictating the rules. But anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review, sponsored by
Citadel 21. All right, everybody. The first meme is brought to us by a fellow plebe. Definitely go check them out. Self-banked. Every dip will be bought. Excuse me. Every peak will be FOMO'd into. Every sat will find strong hands. Hodlers will dream of citadels. And our victories will be toasted. In Bitcoin we trust. And done on the dollar bill. Very strong. And it says, in code we trust. Super, super, super cool. Really like that meme. Moving on to the next one. It's brought to us by our fellow host. And I love reviewing his memes because it makes him visually uncomfortable, as you can tell. And that's for your viewing pleasure. Smash that like button. Anyways, it's brought to us by...
And you're being a like whore?
Brought to us by... Smash that like button. It's brought to us by Coin Icarus. And here's the Bitcoin future and shitcoin future. And this is from Idiocracy. And guess who commented? Adam back. The one on the right looks like Idiocracy. Highly recommend for a preview of where over-the-top capital misallocation leads to. And capital misallocation is caused by fiat. Anyways, moving on to the next one. This is the plebs, and this is from the show The Squid Games, right? And, the plebs are the ones calling out the influencers. Here's Logscale, here's Udi, here's the woman that teamed up with Pomp to charge $850 for the course. Here's Dan Held, here's the infamous Peter McCormack, here's these guys that came absolutely out of nowhere, Dennis Porter and Alf Welfred something.
Mike Alfred?
Yeah, we had Dennis Porter on the show, which it was my fault. I really didn't know. But anyways, then we have Pomp, right? And again, these guys are all into Bitcoin. And I have a really good tweet that actually kind of explains what's going on. If you want the truth, follow plebs. If you want the narrative, follow the blue check mark. Blue check marks includes the influencers. That being said, be aware of those who call themselves plebs for personal gain. True plebs are not in this for the money or the clout, but to tear down the central banking cartel. Beware of those who attack toxicity. They do so in an attempt to censor the truth for their personal gain. What deserves to be destroyed by the truth should be destroyed by the truth. The revolution is bigger than any one person. Remember this. So, that being said, guys, influencers, the reason that they are so dangerous, and I know there's a meme review, is because they could be bought. They're in it for the fiat gains. They're not into Bitcoin for the revolution, right? The whole point of this channel is to expose and tear down the central banking system that literally has taken over the world. And the influencers are essentially becoming the new elite, the Bitcoin elite, right? So again, anyways, and the sponsors that they get that they have, if you look into some of them, again, they're not in your best interest. That being said, because it's for the influencers, Phil, I'm going to give it a chin diaper. What about you?
Okay, you know what? I think that, those were... Subtracting my meme, of course. Okay, the other ones were fantastic, and I'm going with the berries. This deserves the berries.
I like that.
Yeah.
And look, I could take, you could take off the mask to eat the berries. That's legal.
Work together.
You could do that, right? But you have to put it back on after you're done. Anyways, yeah. Phil, haha. Top roller, what would you give those memes?
I'm going to give the memes a USB powered dongle light so that you can see, so that you can shine brightness in the dark. And for the S coining, I am going to give a sharpened pencil so I can take notes.
Okay, a USB dongle light and a sharpened pencil. Wow. Incredible score. And grapes. And a mask. And awesome. Anyways,
we're on today.
These are ridiculous
fire scores. These are fire scores.
Anyways, guys, we want to know: do you agree with our scores? Do you disagree? Let us know down in the comments, and of course, join our Telegram group and link us some memes to review because it's a Bitcoin meme review, and we need memes to review. Anyways, Phil, it's time for
the Daily News, sponsored by Crypto Cloaks.
All right, we have Steve Hanke. He is a fiat economist, and he's been very vocal against El Salvador and the Bitcoin law, which they passed legally, right? And the president, I might add, has some of, you know, the best popularity out of any president anywhere in Latin America. But check out, we have to be fair, right? We have to show that there is a protest apparently, and the protest is a, you know, I don't know. I guess they're protesting that Nayib Bukele is a dictator. Let's check it out. As you can see, there's a no Bitcoin sign right there. Look at that. Check that out. Anyways, enough of that. It says no dictators. As you can see, the protest is really long. But remember what I told you guys? I told you guys this a couple episodes ago. Focus on the camera angles. The camera angles. They reveal the truth. Anyways, moving on. Here is a tweet by Nayib Bukele. Here's its translated. It says, protesters beat a citizen for exercising the rights they say they defend. The citizen files the complaint with the representative of the human rights ombudsman, and he takes the side of the aggressors. This is the signal, guys. Don't focus on all the top, right? The international community supports the two previous parties that were in power for I don't know how many years. Nayib Bukele is a new party because the people got sick and tired of the same old crap, right? And here's a video.
Porque me estoy expresando en contra. No. Es que usted tuvo la culpa porque le pone a tomarle fotos a las personas, no porque no hay mascarilla. Es que lo han mandado a usted a tomarle fotos a la gente.
So basically tell him to move away, you know, it gets violent. And here is, I think, the real, you know, nail in the coffin of this protest, okay? And he says it in just 12 seconds. They censor the freedom of expression of an older adult. They push a person with assisted mobility cane and try to censor a media outlet. Okay, so check this out.
Porque no vale la pena tener un gobierno corrupto como este. ¡Pueblo que escucha! Nosotros los pobres. ¡Pueblo que escucha!
¿De qué medio son?
So to translate what they did just now, right? You have to pay attention, right? They were asking an old man why he was there. All the younger people pushed him away, and then the lady at the end in Spanish said, "What media are you from?" Kind of iffy there. Why are they doing that? If he was really there to be there, why are they pushing him along?
Why would it matter?
Why are they asking what media source are you from? Right?
Right.
Anyways, and why is Steve Hanke, why does he care so much about what's going on in El Salvador? Just some questions. Anyways, moving on. Remember what I told you guys about camera angles. Camera angles are very important, right? Because if you move the camera angle from the bottom, as Steve Hanke did over here, right? You know, this is from the bottom, right? But it's really from the top that reveals the truth. So let's check that out. The video has no volume.
Ouch.
Ugh, where is everybody?
Thank God for drones. Anyways, moving on to the next one, right? And here is another tweet by Nayib Bukele. Here are the images from above of the climax point of the concentration of the march, with the drone, with all the surrounding areas, including everyone, protests, journalists, vendors, passerbyers. Take all the photos closed and from below that you want. And this is exactly what we were telling you about camera angles. And let's check that out. So this is the entire protest. You have bigger protests in Europe complaining about the lockdowns and actual things that are happening. And this is the amount of people that they were able to put together.
How much do you think they paid these people?
Well, as you could see by that old man that had no idea where he was at, and he wasn't even allowed to speak, right? I think they just dragged them out of the houses personally. So
they ran them up at an old person's home. Come on.
So again,
get lunch.
So again, like why are we covering this? Like, why is this important? Because again, no one else is going to cover this, and we're trying to defeat the narrative that Steve Hanke's trying to paint. Now, who are these parties that are backing up, these protests, right? And here is essentially a media outlet from El Salvador. It says, a march promoted by Arena, which was the old political party that was incumbent for I don't know how many years, and the left-leaning political party FMLN, which promised to be one of the largest, has failed due to the low number of protesters. Now, Steve Hanke would like you to believe that this is a huge rally, but as you could see from the aerial images that we've shown you, again, the actual reality of the situation is it wasn't that big of a protest. Now, let's talk about, his popularity numbers, right? I think Joe Biden has a popularity in the United States of 42%. Nayib Bukele has the lowest popularity ranking that he has is about 83%, right? So why is it so important, right, for Steve Hanke, an American that doesn't live in El Salvador? Why is he focusing so much time and energy on what a Latin American country is doing? Why is it such a big deal to him? And I'll show you why it's such a big deal to him. Let me pull up this tweet by Nayib Bukele. 2 new Chivo facts. People are inserting way more USD to buy Bitcoin than what they are withdrawing from the Chivo ATMs. Any media outlet can independently confirm this by visiting the ATMs. Today we received 24,076 remittances, adding up to $3 million in one day. And those $3 million that El Salvadorians are receiving from people abroad, they are paying almost zero in fees, thanks to the Bitcoin rails, not Bitcoin the commodity. And that is why you have that response from Steve Hanke. Steve Hanke is a main proponent of the US dollar, and the US dollar is a way that the US government uses to control governments through sanctions all around the world, right? So again, the main purpose of this channel is just to kind of, show you guys another perspective that those protests that, they got those very nice angles from, right? If you look at them from abroad, it doesn't look like there are so many people. And the protesters themselves, like that old man, why wasn't he allowed to talk to the media? Why? And why were they beating up someone else? Like, what was that about? Wasn't the whole the point of the protest was for freedom? And supposedly Nayib Bukele was a dictator, like they'd like to label him. And why is the mainstream media and international media also calling Nayib Bukele a dictator? All very convenient. Maybe, just maybe, it has to do with El Salvador picking freedom money, a money that allows their citizens to save millions of dollars in fees, just receiving money from abroad, a money that can't be controlled by the central bankers. Maybe, possibly. We don't know for certain, but that could be it. Phil?
Look, I really love how technology has come so far along that we can now just use, anybody can really, pick up, buy a drone and be able to provide a bit of a different narrative than what the mainstream media is, is able to do, right? We all have phones, you can get drones. It's absolutely fantastic. And look, right now we've got Bitcoin. Bitcoin is making the central bankers look like fools. It's making every single person that sits there and pretends that they're an economist, any one of these people who pretends to be a monetary policy specialist of some sort, they look like morons right now. Because all of that wonderful fiat education completely goes to waste. It does. And it pales in front of Bitcoin. Bitcoin just is, right? Like Beautyon said, Bitcoin is, and that's enough. And that's exactly what it is. And this is what they can't stand. So what they need to do, what they desperately need to do, is discredit everything around it, right? And you can see, look, right? Nayib Bukele, he went, They went and made Bitcoin legal tender in that country, right? Alongside the USD. We're able to see the receipts. We're able to see the amount of remittances. We're able to see how much money they're all saving. There's really nothing wrong with a population being empowered by this. But the problem is that it destroys the narratives of the major power structures. That's the issue, and that's why they're crying about this. I find it phenomenal that people are willing to defend their moat. So, or in this case, not even just people, but groups are willing to defend their moat until there is nothing left to defend, when they could take that same energy and focus into deciding, you know what, this is a new paradigm shift. I need to figure out how I'm going to add value into this new system.
Absolutely. And
anyways,
I just might add, like, look, they are absolutely terrified. That's why they're spending so much energy and so much, they're they want to set this narrative that Bitcoin is set for criminals, but they can't shy away from the fact that in 20 years, El Salvadorians opened 1.8 million bank accounts. It only took 30 days for 3 million Salvadorians to download and use a Bitcoin wallet. That's what they don't want you to know. That is a success. That is banking the unbanked, the underprivileged.
Are all these people criminals?
Anyways, Top Roller, what do you think about this?
See, I didn't know what the full story was. I honestly thought it was because I only saw like the big picture, so I thought it was just like an anti-lockdown protest. But after seeing what you guys showed, it brings me back to back in like 2000, like before like the internet was like really, really big, like it was just kind of starting. It just brings me back to then, and I used to always on TV if the people were actually saying what the TV showed them to say.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a carefully crafted narrative that that the powers that be are trying to essentially, and failing, by the way, to try to maintain control. But anyways, moving on to the next piece of news. Check this out, Phil. We called this at this point. Like, it just becomes so obvious. The Office of Foreign Asset Control, and you guys are going to remember who these people are. They're part of the Treasury Department. They came out with, to quote them, sanctions compliance guidance for the virtual currency industry, right? And let's scroll down, because this is This is a lot more nefarious than you guys think. How do you block a virtual currency? Once a U.S. person determines that they hold a virtual currency that is required to be blocked pursuant to OFAC regulations, the U.S. person must deny access to that virtual currency, right? OFAC sanctions involving virtual currency, right? Who must comply with OFC virtual currency? This includes all U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents wherever located. So essentially what they're trying to do, right, is say, listen, whatever country that the U.S. deems unbankable, you are no longer allowed to transact with those individuals in that said country, right? And kind of connect the dots a little bit, because earlier on this year, in May of this year, Marathon, right, actually released OFAC compliant blocks. And now you understand why they did so. They did so because they knew preemptively that this was coming, right? Marathon miners have started censoring Bitcoin transactions, right? So essentially what that means is whenever a mining pool finds a block, they get to choose what transactions are included in that block and what transactions are not included in that block, right? Anyways, they failed. The community pushed back, right? But again, the federal government is fighting back, and they released that. They're essentially calling you, if you live in the United States, a criminal if you decide to send Bitcoin to people in certain countries. Just because you were born in a certain country, the U.S. government does not want you to transact with them. Anyways, moving on. So how successful was this, right? Because again, this proves the resilience of of Bitcoin, and here is a couple examples. There's no such thing as being an OFAC compliant block. They can raise the bar arbitrarily. Did they check the electricity wasn't paid for it with sanctioned money? Did they knowingly build on a block that wasn't clean? Who gets to bless the first immaculately conceived block anyways? Right? And anyways, indeed, despite Marathon surveillance, transactions from a Russian dark web market were still processed in the clean block. Keep up the good work, compliance flying circuits. But when I do, it's in OFAC compliant blocks, right? It's a shame, an absolute shame, I tell you, if Iranian Bitcoin miners were to dust the Coinbase output address in this block. Receiving payments from Iranians is considered sanctioned circumvention by OFAC, right? So again, what did the Bitcoin community do with these OFAC compliant blocks? They sent sanctioned Bitcoin to that block. And here's the thing. When you mine a Bitcoin block, you can't move that said Bitcoin for a certain amount of time. So you can just send Bitcoin to that address and it's no longer OFAC compliant. Now, here's the thing, and it kind of worries me a little bit because as we reported, the United States now controls about 35% of the global hash rate, right? So that means that the US government, the federal government, could put pressure on these large mining pools to make them OFAC compliant. Now, will it work? No, because the United States doesn't control 100% of the hash rate. And let's say a miner in Venezuela, guess what? They'll be more than happy to take any transaction that they don't want, right? And let's say individual pleb miners, right? If you're mining a miner at home, are you going to mine OFAC compliant blocks? Again, so look, this is the US government's attempt to maintain their power, right? And their power comes from the weaponization of the US dollar because the dollar is the global reserve currency. The US government has been using the dollar to essentially strong arm countries or people that they don't disagree with. Now, are some of these people bad people? Absolutely. I'm sure, you know, that some of the sanctions are justifiable. You could say that. However, there is a lot of collateral damage. The example that I always give is Afghanistan. What happened in Afghanistan, right? Afghanistan was cut off from the global financial system, right? There was giant bank runs, people trying to take out their cash. Essentially, the whole banking system collapsed in the country. So what was the only way Western Union shut down? What was the only way that people abroad could send money to relatives that have nothing to do with politics? They're just people trying to live their lives, just like people in Iran, just like people in Venezuela. They were just regular people trying to live their lives, but they're punished. Everyone in that country is punished, right? In the current legacy system. You know what is the only money that they could receive? Bitcoin. That was the only money. An open monetary network that doesn't discriminate about who you are, where you were born, where you grew up, what your skin color is, what your religion is. So the question is, do we want to live in a world where essentially people at the top get to dictate who is bankable and who is unbankable? Or do we want to live in a world where everyone is equal and everyone gets to participate in an open monetary network that allows you to transact freely? And this is why El Salvador is so dangerous to their narrative, because it only took 20 days for Bitcoin to surpass the traditional banking system. And you know what? The people of El Salvador are benefiting from that. But not only are they benefiting from that, they're... Anyways, Phil.
That's exactly. Get to that point where it's just like mental explosion. Okay, so look, I just want to remind everyone in relation to OFAC compliance, and it's so funny that OFAC sounds like OFAC. I don't mean to swear, but that's interesting. That I'm just pointing that out. Just so happens it sounds that way. I just want to point out that in relation to OFAC compliance, there is absolutely no such thing as a clean block. This whole narrative between the clean blocks, the dirty blocks, all of this stuff, Bitcoin doesn't give a shit, okay? Bitcoin does its thing. That's it. It's these people that are choosing to create narratives of clean and dirty and all of this stuff. This is layers. This is what the bureaucratic machine does. Okay? It adds layers of complexity for no reason whatsoever except to support itself and its own existence. Like it's a parasite feeding off of itself.
It's disgusting,
and they're just disgusting. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've shown the receipts countless times. We've shown how many billions of dollars they waste on trying to fight, quote unquote, organized crime and all kinds of crime. Okay, through money. You fight actions. You don't fight money. Okay, this is completely different. Okay, when they do this kind of stuff, this is like psychotic, strange behavior that we've all come to accept for some odd reason, but it makes no sense. You know, you want to crucify somebody, you crucify them on their actions or whatever it is. But like but for transferring money, I don't care what country you're from or whatever it is. Okay, not every single person, to your point, Nico, deserves to suffer under that ban hammer. You know?
Could you imagine being born like myself? Right now, I was lucky to be granted, an American passport. But could you imagine being Venezuelan or being from Afghanistan or being from Iran and you leave those countries? Try opening a bank account. Nope. Can't. Why? Why is that? So you have to operate in cash.
You're just the wrong type of person.
And what happens when you operate in cash? That cash loses value. And it gets redistributed to the elite and the state. Is that a fair system to you? This is what we're fighting against. This is why we don't focus on shitcoins. Shitcoins are noise. Bitcoin is the revolution. Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that has sufficient amount of decentralization to fight the powers that be. We are fighting for freedom. And every time you buy Bitcoin and you take it into self-custody, whether you know it or not, you are now part of that revolution. Anyways, Top Roller, what do you think?
Hold on. Before we go to Top Roller, I just want to add one last piece. I've told you before about the guy that I saw in front of a bank with a picket with a sign. I am not financially viable. In Bitcoin, that everyone can join into the system. There is no bank to picket in front of. There's no master. Anyway, sorry, Top Roller.
Rules without rulers.
So this brings me back to when I first started researching Bitcoin, late 2016, and then like early 2017, I was nervous, and so I mined a little bit of an S coin, traded it for Bitcoin, and then put it on a Bitcoin Core wallet on my desktop. I did it all, basically for free, except for minus the whole thing with electric. So I just wanted to get a little piece of Bitcoin. And then when I did, there was this feeling that came over me. And I realized at that exact moment that I had money completely outside the system, that the governments and banks had no say in what happens to. And it had, it was like cash, but it was better. And it was just this epiphany that I had to really just start to get to know more about it. And part of the key is just getting a tiny amount of Bitcoin into a wallet that someone has, and they get that feeling too, I believe. And I think that feeling is that feeling of it's like a true feeling of freedom. It's a little bit scary at first, but then once you get comfortable with it, you realize it's 10 times better than what the system provides.
Absolutely. The transition, I think that's, the transition from, you're used to operating in this, giant bureaucratic banking system where it takes, I don't know how long to send a wire and your credit card gets denied. But once you think about it, it's like, that's your money. Why are they telling you what you can and cannot do with your money? And there's a very simple reason for that. It's not really your money. It's the bank's money. And we've covered it so many times on this show. If you have over a certain amount of cash, they could just take it. So it's like, what's really yours? Bitcoin. Because it's unconfiscatable, uncensorable, it's anti-fragile, and the honey badger doesn't care. It just keeps going. It's freedom money. Anyways, Phil, there was a software release today. Why don't you show everybody about it?
Software releases. All right, everyone. One of my favorite projects in the Bitcoin space. I know the developers of this project pretty well. Good group of Bitcoiners. Raspiblitz version 1.7.1 was released. That is a Bitcoin and Lightning node. You don't have to pay for any of their software. They show you step-by-step instructions on how to set it up, download their image, get the hardware. Anyways, details are down below in the show notes. Check it out.
Phil, we know the developers of most projects in the space. Just saying. Anyways, guys.
How much have you spoken with those guys, though?
That's true, but we know pretty much anyway. Anyways, okay. Guys, before we go, get your tickets to Bitcoin 2022. Meet the plebs in Meet Space. It's going to be 4 days this year. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be at the Miami Beach Convention Center. It's going to be sick. There's going to be music and networking the last day. Really, really cool. 10% off with the link down below. Bitcoin 2022. Check out Crypto Cloaks for the best Bitcoin 3D printed merch. Look, this is one of the things. It's 3D printed. Awesome stuff like the Honey Badger, Bitcoin Grenade. Awesome, really cool stuff. Check the link down below for 5% off anything on the store, cryptocloaks.com. Check out Citadel 21 for the best Bitcoin cultural zine. It's pure pleb signal. Bitcoin news, articles, really cool stuff written by plebs for plebs, citadel21.com. And check out, of course, Pirate Has for some awesome Bitcoin trinkets, like a Bitcoin board game, a Bitcoin source poster, super cool stuff, piratehash.com. And I want to give a shout out to our awesome guest. He is a toxic Bitcoin plebe. Definitely give him a follow for some signal, some pleb signal at Top Rolling. Guys, that was our show. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. And of course, if you want to continue hearing the catastrophic fails from Steve Hanke the Panky and the Bitcoin news from the pleb perspective, definitely consider subscribing. And we'll see you tomorrow, guys, for another episode of Simply Bitcoin.
As the central bankers raise the noise, we're raising the signal.